Flavour N'abania is a successful Nigerian artist. One of his greatest hits is Noah Baby Ashawo Remix. To the ear of the good listener, the song obviously samples the drum pattern of the Bam Bam rhythm, a Jamaican rhythm that had led to the hit Murder, She Wrote, written by Pliers and Shaka Demus. Noah Baby also samples another song, the high-life hit Sawale, released in the 60s. But there is still an underlying melody that is reminiscent of a sound that is much older than Sawale, a sound that could have even inspired the Sawale song itself. I believe there is a reason why this Flavour song was successful. It reminds a lot of Afro-Caribbean and African people of a sound they've heard somewhere, but they can't always pinpoint it. The purpose of this video is to help in doing just that. So hello, welcome to the Botengu channel. I use this channel to show videos about music theory, others with myself playing music, and I also like to make small documentaries on African music. You can like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. In 1930, Justo Angel Aspiazu, commonly known as Don Aspiazu, came to New York with his group, the Havana Casino Orchestra. They recorded and showcased multiple songs that blended the son cubano, a Cuban musical style, with American ballroom music. That combination led to the rumba craze that ensued during the 30s and the 40s in North America and Europe. The rumba here is written with an H, to differentiate from the Cuban rumba, which is a different style. Amongst the songs showcased by the orchestra, there was one song that stood out and became one of the most popular Cuban records ever produced. El Manisero, or the peanut vendor in English, originally composed by Moises Simmons, was a signature song of the orchestra and has helped fuel that rumba craze. The craze lasted, but eventually the son cubano became less popular. That was mainly in the Western world though. In other parts of the world, El Manisero hadn't said its last word. The son cubano would continue to be famous, especially in its native land of Cuba, where a young blind man by the name of Arsenio Rodriguez would carry on the torch during the 40s and use that sound to develop what is now known as salsa music. That song by Rodriguez is a testimony to how the son cubano was a good foundation to develop new musical styles. The country of Haiti can attest to that fact. A lot of Haitians who used to work in Cuba made frequent round trips. When coming back to Haiti, they used the son cubano to develop the Twoubadou musical style. One of the pioneers of that genre was the former soccer player turned musician in the 50s, Cuban. The pattern of El Manisero can easily be heard in one of his early songs, Plein Caille. Cuban would end up being a legend in his country, and his Twoubadou has also left an undeniable print on the compa music, another more famous musical style of Haiti. During the 30s and 40s, as the radio was starting to be widely used in Africa, the distance could not impede the influence of the son cubano anymore. A lot of young African musicians now had access to a different sound. During the height of the rumba craze in Europe, a lot of records were imported and played in countries like the Belgian Congo, for example. That is probably how it got to the ear of the young Wendo Kolosoi, an orphan whose music has bettered his relation with the local Christian institution. One of his most famous songs was Marie-Louise, that came out in the late 40s. The song was re-recorded decades after, and you can hear the similarities between El Manisero and Marie-Louise. Wendo Kolosoi is one of the first stars of Congolese music, but he doesn't have the title of father of modern Congolese music. That is reserved for another singer, Grand Calais. A lot of the songs from Grand Calais and his group African Jazz had two parts. One that contained a varied, slow melody, then another segment that was more rhythmic, with a repetitive chord progression. Those last segments often reminded us of El Manisero. During that segment, we would often hear a guitar improv. That guitar improv led to the seben, an important part of Congolese songs to this day. A case similar to Grand Calais is found with the Cameroonian legend Ebois Lotin. Two of Eboalotin's most famous songs are Elimba Dikalo and Bemba Motosawa. In both songs, Eboalotin usually has the same approach as Grand Kali. He starts off with a musical segment that contains a varied emotional chord progression, then goes into a more rhythmic segment with a repetitive chord progression that again strangely reminds us of the song El Manisero. Eboalotin is seen as the founding father of Makossa music and, with others, has inspired a generation of musicians that came after. In the neighboring country of Nigeria, highlife was generally the music that people listened to in the 60s. The young Ereke Osima, which meant the man without a name, was one of the prominent figures of highlife scene and was said to be a breath of fresh air, as he was not simply following the trend of highlife that was heavily influenced by Ghanaian music. Ereke Osima, also known as Cardinal Rex Lawson, diversified his sources of inspiration and came up with the song Sawale, obviously reminiscent of El Manisero. And yes, that is the song that I discussed in the intro. It was one of the guitarists of Rex Lawson who would, decades later, tutor the young Flavour N'abania. Ivory Coast was not spared by the African version of the Rumba craze. The song Super Bébé by Mamadou Doumbia or the song Vérité by Anoma Mbro Félix are proofs of that. And Anoma Mbro Félix would be a pioneer of the Atie music, the music of the Atie people, his ethnic group. I could go on and on about the influences of son cubano on other musical styles, but I think you get the point. The son cubano has influenced a ton of musicians of African descent, among which a lot seem to have been pioneers in a specific musical genre in their respective countries. The important question is, why did this sound have the influence it had? There were other songs sung by the Havana Casino Orchestra, but it seems that El Manisero had more impact. Why did so many Afro-descendants play that sound? Well, the answer is kind of simple. There were a lot of elements that they recognized. First, El Manisero uses a structure that goes well with the call and response chants in many parts of sub-Saharan Africa. Also, El Manisero is easy to learn, and thus more approachable. Not a huge musical theory is needed to learn it. Then, because it is easy to learn, there is less rehearsal needed. More collective improvisation can be done because the melody is short and fixed, which invites a more rhythmic creativity. More creative rhythmic lines make the people overall more likely to join and dance, which eventually ends up making the song more entertaining. The son cubano has had an undeniable impact on music made by Afro-descendants. However, it was not the only Cuban musical style that left an impact. More on this will probably be discussed in a different video. Today, El Manisero cannot systematically be heard in the cited musical styles as it was in the 50s or in the 60s. However, the timeless sound can sometimes resurge, as we have seen with the case of Flavor's hit, Noah Baby.
I think it's also because of maybe the kind of music I play.
Yeah.
You know, I think my music is timeless, it fits into any kind of event. So even if we're not doing the crowded shows and are you ready now? You know,
yeah. There's something for everybody.
Yeah, there's something for everybody.